Can you tell us your name?
Geraldine Kramer.
And how long have you been a member of the Blue Mountain Eagle Climbing Club?
For about 52 years.
Wow. What year did you start?
1968, I think I became a member.
Wow. So, Mike, the other question is, so what are some of your roles in the past or the present of the club?
Okay. I was treasurer for a while, and I was also secretary. Um, I did the newsletter for a couple of years. When we had a 6-month newsletter, 6 months at a time, and I did that for about 2 years, and I was kind of railroaded off that job. So anyway, I was in charge of the highway cleanup, which Mike does now. I did that for about 8 years, and I was on the board. I'm on the board again, as a board member. I was on the Arboretum committee. We went up to both my husband and I went up to the Arboretum for a couple of years and took care of flower beds, and we had 2 flower beds kind of that we were in charge of, and then the bank along the driveway coming in. We took care of that until it was just too much for him to do the bending over and stuff like that, so we stopped that about a year ago. I guess it was all, When I was married to Len, he was his section of trail was a shower steps, and I know I used to go with him sometimes to work on that.
And that's Roundhead, basically, right? You're referring to shower steps, the
501.
501, yeah.
Yeah. Maintained those, and I helped with that.
How was that job, actually maintaining it?
Oh, well, it was okay. I just did what he told me to do, or just helped him. Moving rocks around was mainly it, and balancing them and that. I don't know if anybody takes care of it anymore. I don't hear much about it.
I don't know myself, actually.
Yeah.
So, the other question is about like a trail tale, basically, that you would like to share with the Blue Mountain Eagle, or with the community, actually.
Like for the future?
Yeah, for the future. Yep, it's gonna go on our website. We have a section in there about trail tales.
Well, all I could think about was really to keep caring for the trail and the outdoors for others, to enjoy, and encourage younger people to get out and witness nature. To me, that's what I like about being outside is, just seeing the scenery and nature and things like that.
Can you tell us a little bit more, like why you feel it's so more important that these people do this actually with taking care of the trail?
Well, I think it's important to keep places like that to walk, and that with more and more places getting industrialized and so forth. And too many people are spending time just sitting inside with their phones and their computers and things like that, which I don't use. I don't have a computer anyway. I think, get out and just talking to people and being around and being outdoors, and it's so much healthier for you than just sitting around.
Can you tell us a little bit more, like what you get from being outside, actually?
Well, the enjoyment of nature and that, I don't. It's nice to be with other people and talk to other people too, but sometimes I like just, walking just myself, even if I'm with the whole group, but just walking myself and just looking around and just sort of meditating and just being quiet and just enjoying the fresh air.
Most definitely. So my other question for you is, like, what would you like people to know about your legacy for the future? Like all the things that you have done for the club, for example. Like, what's your passion behind it, actually?
Well, I guess I joined the club years ago because I wanted something. Well, when I was a teenager, I liked, we did walking around and things like that all the time. And I knew a friend of mine that belonged to the club, and I went with them, and to an outdoor meeting. And I just thought, later on when I had children, I thought this is something we could do. It wouldn't cost a lot of money, and that would be inexpensive to just go and join the club. And that's when I joined and took my kids on hikes and that. And now when I look back, I took them on rough hikes and long hikes, I guess we were too dumb to know any better or something.
What would you say? What would you consider actually a rough hike actually for you?
Well, we went on an 8-mile hike one time. I went on a 12-mile hike. My kids and I went on a 16-mile hike through past Roush Gap in the Roush Gap area, because that was the only way you could go. Only way to get on the trail and get off of it again. You had to do the whole 16 miles, and I did that with 2 young kids. And when I look back, I think, oh my gosh, I was asking a lot of them. Maybe they did it, but and I mean, not that I'm going to encourage other people to do that, but now with my husband, he has to be careful. He's had a stroke in 2014, and so we have to go on more level trails than that, and he can't always do the whole hike, and so we usually go on in-out hikes, so we can turn around and he can go back and not get lost. Where we'd go and, well, he doesn't want to go over rocks and all that, which is on the Appalachian Trail, of course, and some other trails, French Creek and that. So he doesn't want to do that. That would be too dangerous. He'd probably fall, and he has fallen quite a few times.
The other question I'm asking is, what is your favorite place on the Appalachian Trail and why?
I knew you'd ask that. And I don't really have a favorite place, I guess, because my late husband, he wanted to hike the whole trail, but he did in sections. He'd do it in sections all the time. And then he got sick with cancer at the end, and he had done the whole thing, all but 275 miles was all he had left of the whole thing, so he never accomplished that. And most of that was in Virginia that was left. But he'd go for 2-3 weeks at a time, and sometimes I'd go and drop him off. And I did get to hike up to Springer Mountain with him when he started that section. I went with him, and then we hiked up to Springer Mountain just to see, where it would start, and then I spent the night with him, and then he left, and I drove home from Georgia again. And then later that year, we went to the conference up in Maine, and then we hiked from, I think it's Baxter State Park. We hiked from there up to Mount Katahdin. So I did both end in 1 year.
You didn't happen to go to the night, like they call it the Nice Edge up there, where you walk down?
No, we didn't go on that one. We went a different trail. I know 2 guys that were with us, they did that, but no, not me. I don't like heights.
Yeah.
So, it sort of bothers me. And after we were up there to come down, I sort of had to sit and just meditate for about 15 minutes to have the courage to go back down again. And then I said, you go first, and I'm just going to go a couple steps behind you. And I just sort of watched his back and where he was going. I didn't look out till we got into the trees and that. So I was okay. But I said, well, I did end in 1 year, but I didn't go from end to end hiking. So anyway, it was just never my goal. I don't know. And then in Pennsylvania, it's, so rocky at different places and that. And, I've gone on a lot of different hikes with the club, but not anymore. We don't do that anymore, because it's too rocky for Willie to go, and so we don't hike too much with. Well, we don't hike with the club mainly because they hike Sunday mornings, and we go to church. We always go to church every Sunday morning. And years ago, when I first joined, they only maybe had 1 day a month hikes, and they were Sunday afternoons. We met around 1 o'clock or 1:30, so I could do both. And I wasn't always as active in church, going to church years back as we are now. And so I hiked different times. I've been going up to 183 and hiked in there. We walked in there sometimes on our own just to take a walk over the years, that section. And,
is there any favorite place, maybe besides Springer or Mount Katahdin, places in Pennsylvania that you like to hike at all? Actually, that were your favorite. You know, I know some people say like the Pinnacle.
No, no. Well, we went to the Pinnacle with his church. A church group went, and we went with it. Oh, it might be like 5 years ago or so now already. And we went up, and we did it. That was the first time Willie ever went up to the Pinnacle. I'd gone before, of course, over the years, and he said, "Okay, we did that. That's it. Not again. Not again." Well, we went to one place we did like. Was we went to the Appalachian Trail Conference, going to different ones of those, and it was at Emory College in Virginia, and then we hiked these trails, and we went out and we took lunch with us, and the wild horses came there, and were right there when we were having lunch, so that was pretty neat. I like that. That was neat. And years ago when we were at another conference in North Carolina, we stopped at the Roan Mountain, and the rhododendron was in bloom, so that was nice, you know. So, like I say, it's always kind of nature that I look for.
Most definitely. So, is there anything else you'd like to add at all about like your experience with the hiking club?
No. Like I say, my kids, you know, went on. We're the ones we went on all the hikes together. My children and I until, well, when Len and I got married. Then my son figured he didn't have to go anymore. I could go with Len, you know, you could get out of it. But he hikes sometimes afterwards. Once in a great while, my daughter comes out on a hike. But
would you say overall would you say that your experience with the hiking club has been very enjoyable?
Oh yeah. You know, like I say, I was eager to join it when I was a teenager already. And it's something, you know, I think it's a real good thing family-wise. We had quite a few families back then, you know, that came out and did things and hiked and that. And I don't think there's too many families anymore, you know, bringing their children out, which is a shame. So it'd be nice, you know, if that could see that again. And the club, and it does a lot of good work, you know, maintaining all those, 64 miles. And
64.4 actually.
Right, yeah, I knew it was a point something, but I was
yeah.
I was going to say 65, but I knew it wasn't quite 65. And you know, hopefully can keep up the work, and you know, and maintaining the shelters and the job journeys and outhouses and so forth with it. I know is a problem at times that has to be dealt with, but I'm sorry that the Appalachian Trail isn't having their bi-weekly, every other year things anymore. That's always nice that they're sort of changing things too.
What did they used to do back then, actually? The Appalachian Trail Conservation?
They had a by every other year, it was every 2 years, they'd have a conference somewhere in a different state or along the trail. And it was a week long, and they'd have seminars there, and they'd have speakers, and you'd go and stay there. You know, it was at a hotel or a college or something. We helped host it. Our club helped host it with the Lancaster Club up at East Stroudsburg University one time, you know, for about a week. And then you have some people who take you to tour places around there, historical places also around there. And there'll be hikes all week long, and you eat and sleep there. And so those were really nice, and they've been doing it for years, but now they've decided not to do it that way anymore. So that's kind of a shame.
Kind of doing different things.
Yeah.
Would you say back in your days, would you consider yourself a conservationist? Back when you joined, like, you know, taking your kids out on a hike to try to enjoy nature?
I don't know if I'd call myself that or not.
I mean, like, would you say like you invested your time in a club because you care so much about the trail itself, but also like a conservationist is somebody who basically cares a lot about the environment and about, because like one of the biggest things with the Appalachian Trail is like leave no trace behind.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know that's very important, and that I don't think I thought of that so much as thinking of exercise and nature in that more, and that it was a place you could go and get that, just being in the hiking club.
Yeah.
And now that I don't get to hike with Blue Mountain, well, I did lead a couple hikes in the afternoon on Sunday afternoons, but only 3 people showed up, and 2 of them were my relatives. So, okay, forget doing that again. And but we still hike on Thursdays and Saturdays. We hike once or twice every week almost. Yet Willie and I. So we're still out there in nature and that, but we're with the Reading clubs. And I led a hike on. Well, it was on the Blue Mountain schedule, and Linda came out on it on New Year's Day. Led a historical hike, Myerstown. So, I enjoy doing that kind of stuff yet, and
that's good.
Still doing it.
That's
after
good.
All these years.
You mind sharing your age with us? How old you are?
Oh, I turned 80 on Veterans Day, November 11th last year. Turned 80.
Would you say like half of your life were you always fascinated with the outside of taking a hike, or?
Oh yeah, I would say so, because I would have just been in my late 20s when I started hiking, and and even when we lived at home, my brother and I mean, we all walked a lot of places or biked, to a lot of places. We lived out in the country, well, sort of the country. It's now warehouse community. When you go up 61 now to Shoemakersville, between Shoemakersville and Hamburg, they put in a traffic light on 61 going up, and you go into a warehouse.
Yeah.
It's called Science. That was the lane into our farm there. That's where I lived.
Oh my gosh.
I'd sit along 61. Well, it wasn't a big highway back then either, but I'd often go out there and sit on the railing, the guide railing, and wave to people going by, which you couldn't do nowadays. You'd probably get stopped by somebody. I mean, somebody'd stop and grab you. But I'd sit there and wait till my mother come home from work, and then I'd get in the car and go in the lane, to our farm. But that was our farm. And one day, my brother and I accidentally left the steers out, and they were out on the highway, and so kind of got a heck for that one. But that's where I live. Now there's a traffic light, and that's the main road going in there past the warehouse.
Wow.
Whole farm's going. So boy, that really changed.
How long did you live on the farm, actually?
Well, it had been my grandparents' farm. Well, I didn't live there with them, but it had been my grandparents' farm until 1942, and they sold it to Mr. Ritter, who bought up a lot of farms in that area. And then it was 1942, and then I was in 5th grade. I was 10 years old. Then he got a job working on the farms, because the people that, and then we moved back there, and we lived there, and that was like part of his pay. We lived there rent free, and then all the men from each of the 5 farms would get together and work the farm. So we didn't have to work the farm, but we had a garden there and everything, and there was steers and pigs and chickens there. So we lived there till I was married, till I was 19 or so. Lived there,
Wow.
And then my stepdad got sick, and he could no longer work, so they had to move off of there, and that was just about a year after I'd gotten married, and then they moved on the other side of the highway, bought a house, and lived there then.
Wow.
The rest of their lives.
Some fond memories there, huh?
Yeah.
I saw you have a map. Is that a map over there you have, or?
No, this is, well, I saw this, I was straightening out my placemats, and this was given, we got this at the 50th anniversary, I guess, at the banquet, and I had a whole bunch of copies, and this one, and I thought, well, you may have this one.
Okay.
You could have it. It's they made a placemat, like they're on the trail with the birthday cake.
That's really nice.
Like, my copies didn't look as good, but you may have that one.
Thank you.
Like,
Is there anything else you would like to add at all, or?
Look at my notes. I only have to wear glasses for reading now. I got cataract surgery last year.
Oh, wow.
I wore glasses every day of my life since I was 3 years old.
Wow.
So it's really a change. It is a miracle that I didn't need them now, but except to read. Henry and Cal Sipe and another brother, they had a couple cabins up along the trail, and that they had built, and then their families would go up there, and then they were approached by, I don't know, somebody from our club, or I guess it was some of the men that hiked up there. The businessmen approached them, and then they donated one or two of the cabins to the club, and then they were asked if they would build some more, even all along the Appalachian Trail. And they were going to do that, but I think they built one or two more, but it just never happened that they built more than that. But my girlfriend Sonia, was Henry's daughter Sonia, and I were girlfriends since like 6th grade, all the way through high school. And she'd talk about them going up to these cabins and that, and so then I went along to an outdoor meeting that they had twice a year in spring and fall. They'd have an outdoor meeting, hiking club, and then that's when I got interested in it. And then later on when I had kids, and I called him up and he gave me the information so I could join the club. This was a hike we went on. Here's my kids, and my mother went along with us. And it's Lehigh River Gap. This is 1968. So my son would have been 8 and she would have been around 9 and a half. And this was down where we were meeting, but then we came all the way up here on the rocks and that, and we're up here. And I had to sit down and sort of meditate for about 10 minutes to have the nerve to go back down those rocks. The heights, I'm not one for height. This was another time we were up here. Here's with the Gearys, Esther and Paul Gerry. I think she still maintains a section of the trail with her son or son-in-law or something. Here we're climbing up to Eckville, to the pinnacle from Eckville. You see us all climbing up the rocks here. And our picture was happened to be going the KT8 brochure. Same picture of us going up. That's my son, and there's me, and see a little bit of my daughter. And there's another time, going up to Eckville. There's a copperhead, a snake here. I think we saw 4 snakes that day going up. They were just along the rocks, but boy, you had to really watch that you wouldn't put your hand there or anything. No, that's not on the Appalachian Trail. It's a hike up to the Robertsonia Reservoir. Now, this was St. Anthony's Wilderness in 1972. That's my son standing there. I don't know exactly where that is. I thought I had another picture of him, and I couldn't find it, where he's like standing in a well. And then here I am being initiated at the Eagle's Nest, 1973.
Is that where they held the ceremonies back then?
Yeah, they still do. The same place.
Oh, did they?
Haven't you been initiated?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I will.
Yeah, I have to see to that. Yeah, George Schellenberger usually leads a hike up there for initiation. And so there's me being lowered by a rope to see the eagle's nest. There's a nest there with an eagle in it.
Wow.
That you get to see. Join the club. This is when we went up to Jim Thorpe. And this is the Lehigh River, and these were pipes and ropes across, and that's what we walked across. That was really scary. My kids were scared. We made it across, but I thought they could have slipped and fallen into the Lehigh River. That was really scary. We were going down the bank. There's my daughter here. She's, I don't know, it looks like she's sitting down, going down. Going down towards the river. And this is our adopt a highway cleanup. The signs are there. We still do that. Well, Mike Najarian's in charge of that. I'd like to help him, but he does it on Sunday morning again. Yeah. And we used to have Halloween parties and New Year's Eve parties. Two people dressed like pumpkins. That's George Schoenberger's one son. And I don't know, that might be George. They really went all out with their outfits and that. We have them up at the Arboretum. That was another hike in Wilmersdorf area that I led. Well, I was divorced when my kids were little, and then anyway, then I met Len, and here we got married. I wanted to get married outdoors, and then we wanted to get married. Well, he said he was free January 1st, so January 1st, we got married outdoors. It's about a couple inches of snow. It's about 20 degrees, and got married at Connerweiser Park in the gazebo. And we had a pastor from the church in Robisonia was willing to do it. And then a lot of hikers were there. It was kind of the reception. It was just one of the buildings there where they took all their trucks and everything out of it and left us have the reception there. And that's the pastor, and then this is Paul Lehman. Anne, she's still living. He was in charge of getting the hikes ridden up and everything. Hike leader. Yeah, he had another name. Anyway, he'd get the schedule together. This is Al Napolitana. He doesn't really come out too much, but does with the other Thirsty group and his children. I think that's Wilma Flagg, who used to be very active. That's Paul Lehman. He used to hike around his basement. When he couldn't get out, he'd hike around his basement and, count how many laps around his basement to do so many miles.
Wow.
Always walking, making sure he walked. He got sick. I don't remember what he got sick from when he passed away. Passed away around Memorial Day weekend one year.
So you got a lot of your membership club.
Yeah. The earliest I have here is 1970. But like I say, I know I belonged before that.
Very interesting.
And they used to put it in the Hamburg Item, which is a one day a week newspaper. My mother always got that. They always had their schedule in there. This is from June 6th, 1968, the list of the hikes.
This house right here, is this a cabin right here?
Yeah, that's a cabin, Mel Brinton's. It's down like in Hopewell or French Creek area. And they had twice a year, in October, they would have a meal there. And I know Len, he made a lot of the meals. And everybody meet there for the outdoor meeting. They'd take a hike and then they'd have a meal. And so they were here one time, and there were like 100 people at those outdoor meal things.
Wow.
Every year, had a lot of people. Then some years, there were a couple ladies, and they all got together, and did the cooking and made the meal for everybody. You just had to sit around on your chairs or sit around on a rock and stuff like that. Bring a lawn chair. This is a ticket from a banquet, $3.25, a little bit cheaper than the one we went to, right? That was a little expensive this last time.
Yeah.